William Plant Commission meeting is called to order for Thursday, June 12th, 2014. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, please take the roll.
Commissioner Dorband.
I'm here.
Commissioner Johnson, I am here. Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Schaaf.
I'm here.
Commissioner Steilen.
Here.
Commissioner Zangara.
I'm here.
And Chairman Rafato.
Here. Mr. Jennings, any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes this evening.
Citizens' concerns and comments. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on any matter other than the items for review tonight, please come forward. None. Consent items. Docket number SCBA 1411, Route 21, car wash and detail, wrong street. 400 North Milwaukee Avenue, appearance approval of wall sign and freestanding signs, Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Steilen, second by Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes. Commissioner Steilen.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson, I vote yes. Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara.
Yes.
And Chairman Rafato.
Yes. Items for review, docket number PC 14-10, Illinois Machine Company. I assume it's Illinois. IL. Thank you. 421 Harvester Court, minor site plan and appearance approval for nitrogen tanks. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. Petitioner is requesting minor site plan and appearance approval for 2 tanks to be placed in the rear of the building. The staff report mentions just a handful of minor issues, conditions of approval relating to the outdoor storage of materials and vehicles. Just to, when you visit a site, you're seeing a snapshot. Those materials may not be there on a daily basis, but just to clarify the zoning code, we added those conditions of approval to this draft motion. So if you could come present.
What you want to do?
Just a brief overview of the proposal, please.
And if you can give your name and business address, thank you.
Ken Wolfen. I'm with Praxair. It's 12,000 Roosevelt Road in Hillside. I'm representing IL Machine at 421 Harvester. Do you have one of the other photos of the back? That would be, those are the tanks right there, 2 nitrogen tanks. Currently, we have one inside and a nitrogen generator, so we're going to replace both of those and put the tanks outside for just, it's safer and better, more capacity for them as well. It's going to occupy 2 spaces. The 2 handicap spaces will still be accessible. There's 2 9x9 precast concrete pads that'll be ready for fence posts and guardrail that'll go around to protect the tanks as well. And I think there were some other photos too of the drawings. Yeah, there's one just showing on the right there the fence where the opening will be in the front, 6-foot opening to access for our truck so he can fill both the tanks.
And that's
the difference. Yeah. Is there one back yet, or is that, it looks like you had them both combined. Okay. So that's really the gist of it. We follow all the safety standards from the NFPA, so everything will be up to code. Praxair is very safety oriented, so it'll be up to snuff with the, and as far as the request, the 5 bullet point items that were on there, those will all be followed as well.
Great, thank you. Anything else, sir?
I think that's it.
Okay, great. Commissioner Dorband.
Well, thank you. My only question was regarding the fire department and their feeling on this, and they seem comfortable with it, and therefore I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you. The fire department did say, that they quoted I believe some kind of a regulation that says that the tanks have to be 1 foot from the building.
Correct.
Now the pads are only 6 inches, so there's enough space in there where your tanks will be 1 foot from the building.
Yes, yeah, the pads are going to be 9 by 9.
Yeah.
And the tanks have about a little over a 4-foot diameter on them, so plenty of space for them.
Yeah, that's good. The issue these things are portable. These 9-foot pads are portable,
Correct.
so they're not attached in any way to anything, except they just sit on the ground.
Correct.
Okay. And I believe that the fence has to be rooted to a foundation. Did I read that correctly, Mr. Jennings?
That is in the fire department review.
I think it was.
I can double check that real quick if you have additional questions.
The containers shall be secured to a foundation.
Oh, the containers. Okay. Not the pads, but the containers. So the containers have to be,
Yeah, they can be bolted to the, it's an 8-inch pad, so they can be bolted right to it is what we do. And those.
but that's not a foundation, is it? Is that considered a foundation, Andrew?
I do not know, for the purposes of the fire department regulation, I do not know.
I wouldn't think that, of course, these things are 9 inches. How thick are they? Do you remember?
The pads are 8 inches.
8 inches thick.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Or the tanks could be secured to your building somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you see the bases on there, they're on quite a pallet already, so
Yeah.
it's really pretty hard for them to go anywhere. But
Yeah,
yeah, we
I understand.
normally, we will bolt them to any concrete that's there, whether it's a
Well, if that satisfies the fire department, I'm satisfied with it.
That's just my feeling. I don't know if anybody feels the same. Or if we need to take a poll. I'll leave that up to the chairman, but those are the only issues that I had. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Zangara.
I actually have nothing. I've actually dealt with tanks like this before, just the same thing, so I think it's all, I've pretty much done the same exact thing, so I think it's okay. So I have nothing.
Commissioner Powers.
On the drawing here, it says, I think you mentioned the guardrail, but on the drawing, I'm seeing 3 by 3 steel tube, looks like 7-gauge railing, 2 feet 6 inches high or something. Is that what you're referring to as the guardrail? It's actually going to be a tube and not a
Yeah,
guardrail?
it's something the customer has on site, so it's, my contractor found it there, so.
Okay. And I assume as part of this, Andrew, we can't ask anything about the condition of the parking lot?
You can ask about the condition of the parking lot as it relates to the site
I
plan.
guess the parking lot's pretty poor. There's some holes in there. Is the owner have any intention of repairing any of that? Because, I mean, you're going to be, bringing trucks in the back to fill the tanks or whatever, and that side driveway is in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, that I can't answer for him.
All right, I have nothing else.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I think all my questions have actually been answered. How often do you have to fill these tanks?
With the size we're putting in there now, probably about twice a month.
Okay. That's all I had, thanks.
Commissioner Stylin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me a little bit about nitrogen? What is it? Is it a hazardous material? Is it explosive material? What is it?
Nitrogen is just an inert gas. It's 78% of the air we're breathing right now. It's actually delivered in a liquid state, so it's going to be cold. So it's an asphyxiant because there's no oxygen. So being outside, though, it makes it safe. The liquid part, that's why it'll be fenced. There is a chance for, you get a burn from it because it's negative 300 degrees. So it's very cold. There are pressure concerns when it turns from a liquid to a gas because it'll expand about 800 times. So, but that's all taken care of with safeties on the tank and such, so there won't be any issues.
But if something did happen and the gas escaped, there's a school fairly close by, would there be any kind of danger at all to
Completely safe. It's
safe?
not an oxidizer or explosive or anything, so
Okay.
it's inert, so it's not going to react with anything.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Schaaf that, a 7-gauge steel tube that appears to be anchored in just 1, 2, 3, 4 spots around, the one of the tanks. I don't know how safe a preventive that is, and would prefer something that would protect the tanks a little bit more, but I'm not an expert in gauge of steel, so
Okay.
I'm just a little bit worried, and the Ballards, I think, might be offer a little bit more protection, but again, I'll leave that up to the rest of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are my only comments.
Thank you. You were talking about these tubes. So they're, in this drawing to the right, the pad, I assume it's the pad plan. Andrew, we have a separate drawing. Is that the same thing? So where are these, describe in this, on the drawing on the right, where are these tubes at, these 3x3 steel tubes, 7-gauge? Are they just in the front, 1, 2, 3, 4? Are they in the back? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, it'll run along the sides and the front. The only spot it won't be in is the gated area there.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
That's
I'm looking at where the squares are at?
correct, on the drawing, correct, 8 of them.
Okay.
But it's like a rail, though. It's like tubing through there, through the side, so if something backs into it, it protects the whole side of it.
I can't picture that.
It's like
It's horizontal like a guardrail.
Correct,
Okay.
It's not a vertical bollard, it's a
Right.
horizontal rail held up by posts.
correct.
I would also think that a bollard's probably at the corner. And I don't even know if the corners would be sufficient. At the front corners and closer to the opening, so 4 across the front?
What I would suggest on this, lacking a specific comment from the fire department on it, I would suggest perhaps a condition of approval that they review bollard placement with the fire department. There may be some standard, the fire department has mentioned that the installation of the pad would be reviewed during permitting. We can just add that particular comment to the conditions of approval.
Is the commission okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Fine.
Does anybody else have any other questions? No, Clerk?
Excuse me, I do have one. You're going to store the nitrogen there Are there hoses? How do you get it out for its use? I don't know, like Commissioner Stidle, I just know nitrogen is very cold but you know, you're going to have some kind of a use for it because you're going to fill them maybe a couple times a month.
Correct.
So are these piped into the building?
Yes.
Okay, so there's going to be...
What you have is you have the tank itself. You could show, if you want to show that one. I don't know if you can really see, I mean, but they're just big round tanks. Liquid nitrogen's probably in about, when it's full, holds about in 2/3 of the tank. And then the remaining top space is just gaseous, so it's just gas. So what we do is we just draw off the top of that, the gas space, and then just run it through piping into the building.
Into the building?
Correct.
Okay. That was my only comment. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Prior to voting, I could just read off the conditions.
We ought to have
I'm sorry, you're right.
conditions?
Yep.
Number one, that the outdoor storage observed at the property is to be removed prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy associated with the nitrogen tank installation. Number two, that all vehicles on site shall be related to the business, kept in good repair, and not stored in a manner that is in conflict with the zoning code. Number three, that the installation complies with the requirements listed in the fire department memo dated June 6, 2014. That was the memo in the staff report. And number four, that the petitioner work with the fire department to place bollards on the perimeter of the fenced area as needed.
Thank you. So you have a motion by Commissioner Schaaf, second by Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson says yes. Commissioner Dorband.
Yes?
Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Commissioner Steilen.
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara.
Yes.
And Chairman Rafato.
Yes.
And we will have a copy of this
Okay.
for you to take with you.
You'll need to sign something by Ms. Jones over there, and then you can hightail it.
Some sort of elevator music. Hit the button. Little Kenny G. I really remember that there are two songs that are actually kind of
Ready?
I'm ready.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. Calling docket number 2014-8 AZ Global Transportation 555 Allendale Drive, special use approval for a motor vehicle transport facility. Mr. Secretary.
Docket number 2014-8, AZ Global Transportation, Inc., lessee is seeking special use site plan approval as required under Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-07 Industrial Districts, Chapter 19-10 Use Regulations, Chapter 19-12 Site Plan Approval Requirements, and associated sections in order to establish a motor vehicle transport facility at 555 Allendale Drive, which is zoned I-3 General Industrial District. Standards for special use. A zoning special use as defined in Title 19 of the Village of Wheeling zoning is a use of a parcel of land that requires review and consideration before approval due to circumstances or effects on the surrounding properties that may adversely affect them. In order to be considered for a special use, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at the public hearing why their request meets the conditions of the village code, including but not limited to how the proposed use will not damage the enjoyment or use of surrounding properties. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request for a special use meets the standards established in Title 19. The commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings?
No additional staff comments at this time. If we can have the petitioner give a presentation.
Petitioners? Will you both be speaking tonight?
Should mostly be speaking, but I might say something as well.
Okay, so if you could both raise your hands, right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. If you could each give your name and business address into the microphone for our recording, for our secretary, that'd be fine. Right into, we're taping it, so we'll get that. Okay.
Yeah, my name is Asya Vareljan. Do you want me to spell it?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's V-A-R-E-L-J-A-N. And the first name is Asya, A-S-Y-A.
And my name is Patrick Kilmer. And my business address is 33 North LaSalle, Suite 2800, Chicago, Illinois.
So if you could, the floor is yours. If you can describe what you want to do here.
Yes, well, I want to start with saying that we originally opened the business and we were operating from Schaumburg, and then we grew a little bit and we decided to move closer to our home. Still not a huge company. We have about 4 trucks and small trailers, 4-car haulers. They're always, what we do, we transport cars for relocation companies, for customers that move from one state to another. And what my drivers do, they bring the cars in. The cars would probably stay on the lot no more than 2, maybe 3 days, but 2.5 is probably what's going to happen. And then they get loaded and they leave to their destination. No more, give or take, no more than 16 cars at any given time on the property. And we are hoping, if nothing breaks, everything runs the way it's supposed to be, per year we probably should have roughly about 350 cars total parked at that lot.
Anything else?
No.
No? Okay, great. This is a public hearing. If there's anybody that has a question or comment on this item, there's none. We'll go to the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 4 trucks and 4 trailers, 16 car max on the property. Will you, I guess, you will not be doing any car or truck repair on the property, will you?
No.
Okay.
I mean, unless it needs a spare tire, then we'll put a tire in, but nothing heavy mechanical, no.
Okay.
We have a mechanic for that.
I guess there was a condition about the property, the southern part in the MXT district and the other part in I-3, and I guess a condition was going to be proposed where all your vehicles are going to have to be parked in the I-3 part of the property. Is that okay with you guys? Do you guys accept that?
Trying to, because that square has 2 zonings, correct?
Yeah, if I
So
could
the
just-
I-3 is, if you go a little bit to the top.
This
not-
line is essentially what we're talking about, right around
Okay.
here. If you extend the line, there's a property line that runs about here. You come across, that's about where it hits.
So I guess part of the staff's recommendation is that no vehicles be parked in the MXT area, and the picture that you showed that there were trailers parked down in there, and I guess, according to staff, with the recommendation that that wouldn't be allowed, and I guess I'm asking, is that acceptable?
The 6 trailers we talk about? that are
I'm just
parked-
talking about parking
they're not
anything in
ours.
that area south of that I-3 line, which starts going into the MXT area. On a previous picture, it looked like there were vehicles parked in there, and I guess what I'm saying is that's probably not going to be allowed. Are you okay with that?
Yes, but I want to mention that the trailers that are on the parking lot now, they're not ours. The freestanding trailers, and then, which take 80% of that space in that zoning probably. So I would park closer to the railroad to the west. So I would have few cars parked there, and then I might have one trailer sitting closer to the railroad to the east side. So if that needs to be moved, if we can move that closer to the garage entrance, like the picture before had a better drawing, then we could probably do that, right where that big arrow on the right,
Do you know whose trailers those are?
the owner of the property.
And will he be removing those trailers? You don't know?
I don't know, when we arrived, they've been there, and it looks like they've been sitting there for a long time, because they kind of, if you look at the legs of the trailers, they kind of sit in
Okay.
the concrete. We just do car haulers, so there's not even our trailers.
And I guess as far as the building, I guess the building, you have several different companies in the building right now that you're leasing office space to, is that correct?
We originally started, we needed an office space.
Right.
And then the owner mentioned that, if we need the parking lot, because we would have the office here and the parking lot in Schaumburg was a lot of driving back and forth. So we thought that would be probably convenient since it's all in one building. But we only have one company.
Yeah, I guess maybe I misunderstood because I thought it was like one building, you were part of that building, but then the owner wanted to lease some more office space to other companies other than yours, and that's...
There are other offices.
There are other
Like,
companies
well,
working
there's
there?
a big sign, CBI, I think, and Sterling, so they were there when we...
So with the companies that are in there now, we don't have a parking issue, is that right, Andrew?
We don't have a parking issue in the sense of the total count of parking.
Okay.
We do have an issue
With the storage?
with the outdoor storage, and we can certainly send notice to the owner of the property if those are still there, as they were on the staff site visit. We can send notice to the owner of the property. If they're his or one of his other tenants, he can cause them to be removed.
Okay, and I think, looking at, like the plot survey, some of that southern part of land is in a floodway, is that right? I just was wondering, I assume that insurance is being carried for that area or something because it's in like a floodway, is that right?
Where's the, on
I
this?
think I was looking at page 34 of the packet.
Let me see.
Is that germane to? Is there a question behind that?
Well, I just was wondering if do you need to worry about that, or insurance takes care of all that, and it's not part of this discussion?
I don't think that that's germane to the zoning issue before.
All right, I have no further question.
Commissioner Zangara.
Yes, one of the only questions I just, to try to understand, if I'm relocating, I bring my car to you, and I guess with the office, drop off the keys, whatever, and then,
No, we pick
how's
up...
that? You pick up the car?
I have one of the trailers, it's a smaller trailer, it's only 2-car hauler.
Okay.
So I have a local guy that will collect from customers and bring it to the yard, and that's when I said it would probably stay there no longer, depending how, if nothing breaks, then the driver should arrive within a day or two and get them and remove,
Okay.
move them further.
And then were you planning, or is there any planning of having any kind of like fence security around there? So if a car's sitting there for a couple of days, it's just, I know it's back in the,
We have cameras
Okay.
around
So
the
there's
building,
security,
so
yeah, okay.
we never had really an issue, but
and I guess
it's all
Commissioner-
insured.
Those are really my two issues. Commissioner Powers asked what other questions that I had concerns with, so I'm okay.
Commissioner Schaaf.
It seems that the issues that I had, and really were the parking in the MXT, there's that drainage ditch there and the railroad tracks, and for whatever reason that was zoned MXT, I guess I'm at a loss. I don't see any commercial or residential or anything going in that space, but that's not for me to say. So other than that, I have no questions about the operation.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I had one question about the operation itself. Why specifically Chicago to New Jersey? It just...
We used to go to Florida, but then for the business to be profitable, you want to make sure they go fully loaded and they come back fully loaded. So with Florida, it's different because wintertime, you go full, you come back empty. So we changed that route. We don't do cargo because that way they leave today, they come back a month later, these drivers. I try to create, I mean, my drivers have kids, wife. I try to choose the schedule that's better for them, and they get less tired, so less accidents, less God knows what. And that way, financially, it's the same thing. So to get to New Jersey and come back, it should take them no more than 3 days.
But if I wanted to move to Pennsylvania, you wouldn't do that?
No, we do PA. We go as far as New Jersey. We don't go to New York
okay.
because of all the
It just
bridges.
seemed
but
like it was specific, Chicago to New Jersey, and just was wondering.
yeah, that way, I mean, for drivers, it's nice because they work 3 days and they're off 4 days. So they...
Okay, thank you. With this parking restriction, Andrew, they could park the cars in the MXT section of the lot, right?
Yes, I don't think there would be an
trucks.
issue with it. I think the concern is that the aspects of that are specific to car transport, if they're crated in some way, we would want to keep that in the I-3 district. If it's the car transport, the trailer itself, keep that in the I-3 district. But a vehicle that is a passenger vehicle, I don't think that we would be able to distinguish one passenger vehicle from another if it's parked in on surface.
Clarifying it more for them, so you can park the cars back
So the
there.
customers' cars, I can park at MXT by that railroad on the east, nothing,
I don't know, as long as it's a
Commercial.
paved surface, I don't know that a passenger vehicle parked on a paved surface would be distinguishable. I can check and see if we would have anything, but it would be comparable to employee parking. If it's an operational licensed passenger vehicle parked along that paved area, I think that would be fine.
or maybe my employees, that's
Or your
something too,
employees,
that-
sure.
Okay.
And you don't do anything with the vehicles, you just loading them on and
Yeah,
taking them
and
away?
they leave, yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's all I had.
Commissioner Stalin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm still a little bit confused as to the difference between this petitioner's use and the use of the property in general. It's a multi-tenant building. Do you have a designated parking area that belongs specifically to you and no other tenants can use?
For employees' vehicles or for the, for any?
your business use, whatever it is.
No, I mean, they never said you're renting and this is your dedicated ABC spot, no.
So really, anybody can use any portion of the property anywhere. And, you know, I don't think it's really a condition of, for this particular user to say that they can't park in the MXT area. You know, it's everybody shouldn't be able to park trailers or whatever in the MXT area. So, I mean, it isn't something that they're causing. I think they're...
But there's two responses to that, I think, Commissioner. Number one is that the building owner is not before you as the applicant. It's this tenant. So if you want to impose that condition on this tenant, you can do that to try to reduce the non-compliant parking in the MXT area. Number two, you can use zoning enforcement, which Mr. Jennings mentioned, against whoever is putting trailers or vehicles that shouldn't be in the MXT to get compliance. But for purposes of the applicant, you can only condition their use of the property because the landowner is not before you this evening.
Right, and you know, if, I don't know why we would pass a condition that they can't use the MXT area if the zoning doesn't allow them to use it in the first place. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would need to be a condition. It would just be more an advising you that that particular area's got limited use, right?
Sure, and we do occasionally put in code requirements as a condition of approval, just to clarify to everyone
so that
the
they know.
expectations.
Right.
Yes.
And were you out today loading an SUV on a car carrier?
Me, no.
Do you know if somebody
Not me personally.
somebody from your company was? Because there was somebody out there loading or towing a car today, and it sure did seem like there were more than 3 trailers out there. I thought I counted 4 or 5. So, you know.
Car trailers?
No, the big semi-trailers out there today, so.
Right where there's 3 on the picture at that
Yeah.
spot?
Yeah.
There's 6, they always stay
Yeah,
there. They
okay.
never leave, I think they're so old that the owner just kind of put them, they used to have 7. One just left maybe a month or 2 ago, but
So those aren't yours?
no. No, that's-
So, I mean, the other thing is, I mean, I presume it's not a contractor storage yard. What is this property in general zoned for? Is it just, is that a general parking area, or?
It was constructed as a commercial bakery, and the I-3 zoning would allow any number of industrial uses, light manufacturing, some heavier manufacturing, and the current owner of the building has elected to divide it up into leasable areas.
But it's not, could it be a contractor storage yard as well? Could they store bulk materials and stuff?
The I-3 portion of it with special use review could be converted to a contractor storage yard.
But definitely would not be allowed in the MXT.
That's correct.
Area. Do you know when this was rezoned? I would imagine it was probably within the last 10 years or so. Was the building owner aware that his property was being rezoned? Or a portion of it?
They received notice of it, for sure. Everyone within the 250 feet received notice. In particular, the owner of the adjacent property, there's a greater impact on their property to the southeast. But yes, they received notice.
Do you know if we have ever cited them for incorrect use of the MXT zoning area?
Just this particular petitioner.
Okay. Is there any legal ramification of somebody using a zoned area for an inappropriate use for a long period of time that would somehow grant them the ability to keep using it the way that they're not allowed?
It would require an analysis of the specific instance. It's not an issue before the Plan Commission right now. But generally speaking, if a use begins after a property has been rezoned that is not allowed in that zoning district, the concept of waiver would not apply. The village can enforce its law as it applies today if those trailers are being stored there improperly. And I believe that's what Mr. Jennings said the plan would be, to send a letter to the property owner telling him to move the trailers. And if he did not, I assume they would follow up with citations in the administrative adjudication process to gain compliance.
Would there be any benefit in tabling this discussion tonight and asking the owner of the property to come back with the petitioner, that we might be able to streamline the process a little bit quicker and easier?
The property owner is not the applicant tonight, it's solely the tenant. And you would have to weigh the inconvenience to the tenant because it is the owner's issue. It is not the tenant's issue who's before you, and weigh whether it would be fair to them to pass on their application to try to get compliance on an unrelated property maintenance issue.
But I mean, do you think that it would be more efficient to get the owner in real quick, or?
No,
to-
I don't. In this particular case, we have an issue of compliance related to this particular business that we're trying to resolve. The use itself is a special use in the I-3 district. Car transport is a special use in the I-3 district. And this public hearing action is the method of attempting to gain compliance for an existing business. So I would separate the two, and we can certainly send notice. We have not yet sent notice to the owner of the property. We were trying to determine through this review whose they were, and have just fairly recently learned that they are not at all related to this business. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problems with their use of the property, whatever, but, you know, anything that we could do to help move the owner of the property to get out of his non-conforming use or illegal use, whatever you want to call it, I'd like to do that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Dorban.
All my questions have been asked. Thank you.
Great. Are you planning to store anything inside any of the buildings? Any cars inside the building? Everything's going to be
No,
outside?
there's no even,
And then how many employees was it mentioned how many employees you have?
yeah, I have 6 total.
6 total. Okay, all right. And Andrew, I'm struggling with compliance also to a certain extent. I understand the use, but the compliance of not parking in an MXT. I mean, does it, when we rezoned this, was this just an arbitrary line that we put in? You know, because it seems to me that, you know, besides the 3 trucks that are there that are out of compliance, and I know you're trying to work with them, assuming we get that resolved, what is how do we ensure that they're compliant? Is it just reporting, we happen to drive by in, you know, someplace like this you really can't see because it's off the beaten track? How do we keep not only this petitioner or the other tenants out of that area?
Well, to some extent, it is done on a complaint basis. You're correct. The first step of this would be establishing the expectation, which we're in the process of doing both with the tenant and we'll begin that process with the landlord. As I said, I think it was just very recently discovered that this line lines up where it is, and we have not yet contacted the property owner regarding the deterioration of the parking lot and some other issues.
Is there a possibility in the future to change our zoning areas, to go by a lot line instead of a straight line right across? In this case, you know, and I know that to the south of that, you know, we've got property, but it just, to a certain extent, it's almost like a hardship to this property owner to have that segment MXT.
We do try, the split lot zoning regulations in Wheeling are such that the portions of the lot in each zoning district are subject to the rules of that district. In some municipalities, you'll find a 60% rule or something where the zoning of the 60% portion applies to the remainder. But because the split lot rules are what they are, it is generally advisable to keep these along lot lines to avoid confusion. I can look back and see why exactly this one did not follow that pattern. But according to our records so far, it did go in a straight line.
Also, Chairman, the property owner, when he gets the letter advising him that he has trailers where they shouldn't be, may say, well, why don't you rezone the rest of my lot that's in MXT into I3 as well? And he could always file for a map amendment and argue that under the standards, he should have a single lot with the same zoning classification. And he has an option to bring that back before you. He received notice of his rezoning, didn't object at the time, presumably because it went in this way. But he can always come back and try to rectify that.
Okay, great. All right. And you said you're going to be sending letters to the owner of this property as to the compliance?
Yes.
And I'm good with that. I wouldn't want to hold up this petitioner in this manner. I have no other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
A question directed to staff. Is there any way to delineate or mark that area that is MXT so that at least this petitioner would know where not to park a heavy motor vehicle?
Well, as a rule of thumb, I would say that light pole is a physical marker roughly where the line is. There's a light pole in the center of the parking lot, and it's roughly where the line is, just as a rule of thumb. You know, we can certainly talk to them about paint, a sign, but the light pole, I think, for your employees, you have a small number of employees who need this guidance, so we can always work with you on other options if it's not working out.
You know, would they be out of compliance if one wheel and 16 inches is in the MXT?
I think that's a little extreme.
Yes, I believe it is.
I would assume what they're doing now is out of compliance with the 4 trailers, but again, that's not the petitioner, and as staff has said, there's going to be letters sent to the owner of the property to hopefully resolve that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Does it tell us how many feet, like, so I can measure it maybe? So all my wheels are...
It is, we drew it on an exhibit where we used the plan. We can send you this.
Okay,
this can be scaled off, and this gray area.
But there's a light, so if I park anything in front of it,
you're definitely safe north of that light pole. It looks like this dot right here may be the light pole. I can zoom in. And
okay, that's fine.
We can try to get you something.
No,
just a quick clarification on the number of transport vehicles and number of vehicles. You had mentioned that you have a certain amount of staff. You have grown. Does your application represent in some way an expansion plan, or do you?
No, I think we already there. We just expanded to
because that's all you can
trailers.
have.
Yeah.
That's all you can have.
And that's all we're going to have for a while.
Because it's a compliance, you know, if you start having consistently more, you're going to be in violation.
Yeah, and I spoke with our attorney also that if that happens, we'll meet again. If we stay at that property, because right now we kind of bits and pieces, you know, we can't, if I could park them all nice and clean at the back, but I can't even do that. So I have to work it around. So once I have more trucks, I probably would have to look for a better access and maybe more squared lot. But we can't have more trucks than that.
So the number of trucks that you have now is 5, did you say?
Yeah.
And the number of, the maximum number of vehicles waiting to be transported would be what?
It should be no more than 16.
And how often in a day does a truck leave? You know, that's a high traffic area.
Usually, I have them leave like early morning, like 9, 8. Sometimes if depending how the previous driver arrives, then maybe by evening, like today I had a truck leave at 5:30. So we calculated the way, because they have a certain amount of hours they can only drive, and then they have to be off duty, so it kind of works out so they're there at destination early in the morning to deliver the cars. So they would have to leave no later than 12 PM.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings, would you like to review what you've?
What I've done with the conditions of approval is, during the discussion, I've moved the condition of approval relating to your landlord's trailers to a zoning enforcement action, which leaves us with just the two conditions of approval. The one that was from the staff report reads that all truck and trailer parking must be located entirely within the I-3 district. I've added a note that is approximately where the light pole is located. And number two, that the business may park up to 4 transport trailers and up to 16 vehicles waiting for transport.
Great. Do we hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stylen, second by Commissioner Powers. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Stylen,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Doorband,
Yes?
Commissioner Johnson, I say yes. Commissioner Shaft,
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara,
Yes.
and Chairman Rafato.
Yes. Welcome to the village.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Motion to close.
You'll have something to sign over there. Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And at this point, we would anticipate that this would go probably to the first meeting in July for the final decision by the village board. Your extension letter, I think we are still operating under that letter. I'll let you know if we have a need to replace it. Okay? Yes, essentially, they were told to remove. They move the trucks up into this area. They're operating. Very It's a notice of violation where they're working on it.
Ready? Calling docket numbers 2013-12B and PC 14-4 Northgate Crossings, 100 and 250 Northgate Parkway. Special use site plan approval of a multifamily final planned unit development, and PC 14-4 preliminary plat of subdivision. Mr. Jennings?
Thank you. This item was in front of the commission last month. The commission requested additional modifications to the final PUD plans from the petitioner. Those items have been presented as a supplemental packet. Given the extensive volume of plans, I had decided that leaving the original packet intact and presenting these new materials as a supplemental packet probably made the most sense to avoid confusion about what was being changed exactly. So you have in your staff report a brief staff memo introducing each item, a letter from the petitioner introducing the new materials, and then the new materials themselves. So what I have in the slides is limited to the materials from the landscape architect relating to irrigation, the overall site amenity plan, the clubhouse amenity plan. If we need to reference other additional materials, I can open up the full staff report to find those. And with that, I would ask the petitioner forward.
Could you please give your names again?
Warren James, Reba Development Partners.
Matt Nix, Reba Development Partners.
Great. If you want to, the floor is yours. If you want to explain what you've given us today, the supplemental information, we can start with the site amenities and move from there. That probably makes sense.
Very good. I would like to introduce Scott Furres, the principal of Lakota Design Group. He is both our land planner and our landscape architect. And I've had the good fortune of working with Scott for the better part of 20 years. And
Sir,
he's
have you
gonna present-
been at one of the meetings?
I have. I've been to 2 or 3.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure. thank you.
So Scott is going to present the amendments made in response to your comments.
Thank you,
Mr. James, if you could just pull the microphone,
Up a little bit.
that would be great. Thank you.
How's that, better?
Better, much better. Thank you.
Yes, I've been sworn in, so good point. Thank you.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, let me make sure I got everything connected here. There we go, okay. Again, my name is Scott Ferris. I'm a principal with Lakota Group in Chicago, and we've had the good pleasure of working with Matt and Warren over the last 20-some years on numerous projects, very similar in scope, all highest quality, high-end development projects, multifamily, single-family. And this evening, Warren asked if I would give an overview of all the individual items, special amenities that are part of this package related to the overall site development. Before you, you have the picture of the overall site development package. It shows all the building locations, and it shows the land plan that's built around numerous open spaces and an interconnected system of walkways, roadways, parking areas, all thought through in terms of how people look onto those spaces and how they perceive them from within their units and also within the green space themselves. These are amenity packages for the folks that live there. We're certainly aware of that, and have thought through the details with regards to the landscaping, the character, naturalized landscaping, how we approach the trees, the shrubs, the layering of the plant material that's out there, the color pockets that are out there. All those components have been thought through. And then you get into the micro detail, more of what the discussion is tonight in terms of all the special amenities that are there. But suffice it to say, it's organized around open spaces. And there's really three key open spaces on the site if I were to quantify them. One would be, is there a pointer on this thing?
You can move the mouse, it'll come up.
Yeah. Oh, if I move the mouse, excellent, okay. Oops, there we go. Let me see, there we go. One is what I would call our main arrival sequence. That's the north end of our site. This is how we draw people into the site, where our main signage is. It's our central green or gathering space. And it's really the hub for bringing people into the site, to addressing them from a sales perspective, also bringing people for the first time in there. Certainly there's other access points as you come up the road to bring people in, but this is where we're driving activity and driving people to our central green. That was the genesis of where we started building off of our amenity package. So one of the goals early on was to make sure that we consolidated a lot of good features in special areas, as opposed to what we've always called in our industry spreading too much of the peanut butter out and not getting the effect, where you don't see some of these great things because they're too spread out on an overall site. So site area one, or the target area one, is this arrival sequence. This, I'm trying to get my little, there we go. The main entrance screen will come back to in a second. The second piece is really the pond area, the water feature, and it's framed by the buildings that surround that. Beautiful, very pastoral, very natural area, defined by naturalized landscaping, walkways that circumferentiate the area. To the south of that is obviously our flood area, but we see that as open space as well. That's passive recreation when it can be used. Obviously, when it's wet, it's not going to be used. When it's dry, it can be used. We anticipate it being a place where people will run their dogs, to exercise them in a dry condition. We also anticipate it as an area where we can set up informal play venues. And you'll notice on this plan, one of the concepts that came up last time is where can we have some sport court type areas. We looked at the idea of a volleyball court as being one of those components. And when we think of volleyball court, we don't think of volleyball courts as sand volleyball courts. Those are driven to maintenance concerns and maintenance conditions and what happens in sand. And I think we can all imagine what happens to sand in an unmanaged area. So in our mind, that's a grass area. That's an area where management brings out or allows people to bring out nets and apparatus so that they can have sporting events for people to partake in. The third key area of the site is our central core, what I would call our kind of our promenade or our greenway that runs north-south through the center of the site. Again, another beautiful green space that people are facing onto, outdoor living areas in there, and the hub of that, the ground zero of that where it terminates with the entry center green and the linear green, or the common area here, is our club feature. Club feature, as Warren and Matt talked to you about, I'm going to get into some of the package of the club feature, is a very well articulated, very well designed element, very tasteful, high-end amenity packages that are part of it, and it is the core of the development. It's kind of the common space for everybody. It's the ground zero, and all of the emphasis from our standpoint of putting those good things into the package have been focused into that, not because it's there, but because it's a place where you can manage and maintain them in a high quality condition. That's really important. As we start to think about the package of all the things, We can put a lot of stuff out there, but at the end of the day, you've got to manage it, maintain it, and those things that you don't see are the ones that fall off the wayside. The things that you can see that are close to you and that are easily managed are the ones that are taken care of and properly cared for in the bigger picture. So those are some fundamental thinking that have gone into the planning and the features that are there. Now, more specifically to the questions that were asked by the commission last time and bringing in a little bit more detail, this time we have what we would call our central green or our pergola seating area. And that was one of the pieces, and I'm actually going to go to the clubhouse feature here. Oops, there we go. There we go. I'm going to go to the clubhouse feature. I'm reading off the list, but the clubhouse feature, to give you a little bit more detail, the clubhouse feature has the bulk of the active amenity package associated with that, meaning we have a pool, we have our pool house, we have a full-size bocce court, and not a bocce court that's just leftover paved surface, a real bocce court that actually has curbing built in and has a crushed gravel base and drainage, one that can be used throughout all seasons and can be used even in inclement weathers after it rains, so that we're able to use that space. We have built into this space defined areas for our pool. We have a fenced-in containment of this space because we know that there'll be different uses occurring, and particularly related to the pool and the safety features of keeping those people in an isolated area. Our outdoor patio package is extensive. Not only is there what I would call the more recreational, leisure, visual patio that comes off of the building, and it's hard to tell here, but this is actually a covered space. So even in a cool evening or a rainy area, you can use this outdoor area right here. We have a fireplace or a fire pit area that is used by people, gas fireplace that people can go out there, entertain, have a cocktail, have a party out there if they rent the space. We have plenty of outdoor seating on what is a stamped concrete or paved surface, so there's a texture, a definition to that. It's just not the same old concrete area across the whole area. We have identified, and we know that one of the issues that came up last time was the ability to have grills, to have grill units that are part of this facility. In our approach, again, honing it back into consolidating, managing, and maintaining it, the goal was really to build an outdoor kitchen. And the outdoor kitchen was one that could be used by all folks here and the patio space. It's accessible to everybody. It has two grills, two high-end grills, Weber Genesis type grills that have gas connections. It has a counter, it has server area, it has cleanup area. One of the reasons we thought long and hard, should we have some grills that are out in those green spaces? And we've done plenty of work for the park districts in the region. We've done plenty of work for the Chicago Park District and the Forest Preserve. What we found is that those out there cooking areas, those outdoor barbecue areas that are out there become charcoal pits and very unattractive nuisances in our beautiful landscape. And so rather than have that and understand the goal here of high quality, maintaining high quality, we thought better to buy good and put two of them within the bigger picture of a really great outdoor space that's part of the clubhouse feature. So with regards to grills, they're built into a kitchen element that's part of this, and then plenty of seating, shade structures that are part of that as well. So packaged per se in that area. There we go. Additional site amenities are identified in this picture just to give you a sense of some of those features. So you see the outdoor grill, and we talk about that. We're talking about a masonry countertop. We're talking about a granite countertop. We're not talking about something that's just put out there with wood blocks. It's built in. It's permanent. It can be cleaned and maintained easily. It has gas. It has servery. And it has access to the building for bathrooms. So when people are entertaining, they have access to a bathroom as well. The covered portico area that's off of the building, that space is probably best defined as, maybe this gives you an example of the outdoor seating, but you're in an enclosed area where you can get shade, but you can also sit out there on a cool evening or a rainy day, and it's an outdoor environment that people use. Bocce court, great example of what we're trying to build. Again, not a let's just put it out there for the sake of putting it out there, but a real one. We're really building it. We're doing it to the specs that you build a bocce court and doing it properly with the right dimensions as part of that club feature. And then some other examples, which I'll get into in just a second, more on a site-related issue, and that is bench seating, fencing, trash receptacles. Bench seating, trash receptacles, the fencing we'll talk about in just a second, the fire pit area, the pergola area, I'll show you where those go. Bollard, pedestrian level landscape bollards that go through our greenway, so now people can see their way through these spaces at night on the pedestrian walkways. This is separate and aside from parking lot lighting. We know we've got to have that. That's safety and security. This is ambiance and character defining those areas. And it's really important because what we want to do is create a great environment around a residential environment and not make it appear as though it's institutional with too much lighting. And it goes to the standards of the green industry, of the LEED certification that we aspire to, and want to make sure that we're addressing the issues of dark sky in this picture so that we're not just putting too much light out there, but we're putting good light out there for good use, and that's what these bollards, I'll show you where they go in just a second. And then lastly, the discussion of dog curbing stations. So that's a reality of life. People have pets, and pets are growing on an annual basis, and we realize that there's got to be some sort of mechanism out there where we encourage people to use these facilities to curb their dogs, to what we would call package the goods, and take them away. It's important. It's a fact of life, and we know that we have to have them. It all goes back to also managing, too. So part of this process is managing this so that the quality's there, and I'll show you in just a second where these spaces go. And lastly, I want to talk about site irrigation. We had some conversation, as I understand it last time, related to site irrigation, and we have taken an approach very similar to other projects that we've worked on in identifying irrigation in those high impact areas. Easy to say we could irrigate the whole site, and that may be one solution, but the solution that we've taken that we present before you is one that focuses maintaining the lawn areas in those high quality spaces that I addressed earlier when I talked about the common green, where people come in, that the feeling that this place is taken care of and taken care of well is occurring right at the, there we go, right at the front door, in our linear commons, our north-south green, and all of our entrance points into and adjacent to buildings and the connectors around the clubhouse facility and along the main entrance at our kind of arrival points. Those are the areas that we've indicated as irrigating, but irrigating from the standpoint of lawn areas. And that's important to know because the bed areas, from our standpoint, the bed areas would be irrigated off of quick coupler connectors, meaning that on-site management would be able to connect in out in the irrigation system, connect a pipe in, and locally water plants, foundation areas, or special areas on a separate basis, not as part of a timed system. Okay? If I take you back just a second, oopsie, there we go. If I take you back just a second to give you a sense of where all this stuff is happening, I'll try and be brief about it. The bollard lighting that we talked about really occurs at key points along this corridor here, and as it feeds out to the parking areas at different areas, it also picks up bollard lighting here. So we're drawing people into these green spaces where they walk so they can be seen, so they can see the pathway. It's safe, it's low level, throwing the light down, not up, but attractive. It's a landscape element. It is not an element that's meant to light up and create visibility for parking or other areas. Parking lot lighting has been addressed before in terms of how we address the perimeter roads and parking lot lighting, and we have addressed that with regards to the distribution and the foot candles. And from the standpoint of our walkway, or what we call our one of our dog walk, defined dog walk areas along the western boundary, Warren maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this, but we've looked at the idea of redirecting the light off of those street lights so that the light distribution goes back towards the dog walk area as well as the parking areas. So we're just dispersing that light in a different asymmetrical fashion to be able to pick up light without adding more light fixtures to the site. As I'm thinking about that, I'm looking at the last item on the line. We have a fence issue that was asked about and talked about. And one of our items that I want to get to briefly is the idea that along our entire western flank, our western edge, we will have a decorative aluminum fence, the one that was shown in there. What's that? Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies. The fence that's on the western flank is the wood fence. The fence that's, and I'm going to go to this right now. There we go. The fence that's here, which is a 4-foot aluminum fence, is the safety, security, and encumbrance fence for the club facility. So my apologies. Thank you, Warren. With regards to bench locations, we talked about bench locations for people to sit along those trails. We've identified, I believe it's 6 or 7 locations along our corridor here, at our common green, and along our dog walk area that's over here, and another one down here, that are places for people to rest. And you saw the benches, decorative metal benches, decorative metal trash cans, places for people to rest along the area, so that they are coordinated with the pet curbing stations, which are these little icons right here, and I know there's another one that's sitting right down here. So we've got across the site 3 locations for people to pick up their or be identified for places for people to pick up their dog cleanup areas and within our site. And then lastly, from the location of a pergola feature, that decorative element, which we think is going to be really attractive, something that we've used recently on another project in Buffalo Grove for Waterbury, was a really beautiful wood pergola feature. We'd probably be using a synthetic material to make sure that the durability is built into it, but that feature is exemplified in this image that's shown up here. This is the one that we had built for Waterbury, and we would see something very similar to this, maybe a little bit smaller in scale, but integrated into our park feature as a focal point. So as you drive in and you look across that park, you see that really nice feature as an element, adds value to the arrival sequence, also adds a place where you can see that we've put a bench immediately below that space right there. So I think I've hit all of the key topics. Certainly stop me if I've missed any, or if there's any other ones I could explain better.
Thank you, Scott. In addition to the information that Scott presented, we also did conduct a study of ambient light levels in the parking lot. We also introduced an expert testimony from Kimley Horn addressing current lighting standards, as well as from Energy Diagnostics, whom we've hired to certify our energy compliance and also facilitate the LEED certification of this project. So I'm happy to address any questions or comments relating to that additional information. And just to amplify what Scott said, along the western boundary, we did present 3 different lighting plans, all developed by KSA, showing the photometrics. One was the original proposal, the other one was the proposal meeting the medium intensity standards, and finally the one that we're proposing tonight, which makes some simple adjustments to the luminaires on the west side of the parking lot to, as Scott said, change the dispersion so they illuminate the western pathway as well as the parking area. The original plan had more of a cutoff type luminaire that shielded the light disbursement onto the west. While we recognize that the village ordinance and most ordinance today are focused on restricting light spillover to the property or beyond the property line, in this instance we've got a spillway, a railroad track, and another detention pond. So we're better than 500 feet to the next habitable structure. So we don't think that's going to be an imposition to anyone. So happy to address any additional questions.
We'll start with Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you. On your plan, and I've tried to look at that the photometrics, and the only thing that bothers me is the 0.0 levels, especially at the walkways where pedestrians walk. During the wintertime, it gets, change of time, it gets dark at 4:30. And if anybody is out and about, there is a need for some lighting. So I don't like 0.0 anywhere. Granted, there's 0.0 right out here in the front. And the state is going to do something about that. I don't like to see 0.0 anywhere. I don't know the difference between 0.1 and 0.0. I can't fathom that, unless I see it. I don't get that. I was really expecting something in this project that was extraordinary. And you've built a project that was self-contained, and I thought the town center access was just that, is to make it accessible. And everything here is self-contained. You're going to have 288 units available Hopefully, they'll all get rented. That's your, I'm sure that's your goal. I don't think the clubhouse will be sufficient for that. You've provided some of the amenities, and you have to congratulate you on doing something. Some of the other things that we've asked for, you didn't do. What comes to mind is ordinary, and I was expecting something extraordinary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I appreciate all the additions you guys have come up with. You answered most of the things that we talked about, I think. As far as lighting, I still see one dark area behind the upper left building. Might need another outdoor light on that building because it's right by an entryway. Other than that, I think you covered everything we talked about. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, excuse me, are you looking at lighting plan 2 is what you're proposing? There were
It's the middle, there's 3 in a row.
There's 3 in a row,
It's the
and
middle
lighting
one.
plan 2 is what the petitioner has recommended, is recommending.
That's the middle one of the 3?
Yeah. it's-
That dark area is still there on that one.
Behind the building at the northwest corner?
Correct.
I don't,
If I could offer a frame of reference to evaluate the lighting.
sure.
I participated, or I should say I observed, the other night when we came out here and tested the parking lot. And the three or four points that provide the best example. Right out here, there's a double head right underneath, right at the main entrance. You turn off the primary drive into the parking lot. And we took a measurement on the sidewalk underneath that head, and it measured 2.3 foot candles, which was consistent with the lighting plan. And then in front of the building, or near the primary entrance in the parking space, there's a handicap space and a light right in front of it. And then there's a light across the parking lot on the far side. And if memory serves me, the illumination underneath the handicap space was in excess of 3 foot candles. And the one on the far side was about 1.1 foot candles. At the center of the drive aisle, was 0.1 foot candles. And when you stand out there at night at 0.1 foot candles, you can see just fine. When you stand under 2.3 foot candles, you can read a book. It's obviously very well illuminated. And the final point of reference would be by the drop box where we measured 0.2 foot candles. And there are many areas that we walked around that were 0.1 foot candles, and it was, you guys have been in the parking lot, you understand, you can see fine. Where we found 0.0, as noted, was all along the public walkway on Dundee, and that's consistent with the lighting plan for this building, was 0.0. So even though it says 0.0, there are relative degrees in there. Our light meter didn't go beyond 1 decimal place. I'm sure if it did, you'd see some of these other finer gradations, which does provide illumination. So that's just kind of by way of reference.
The meter that you had went down to the tenths.
Pardon me?
The meter that you had went down to the tenths?
Down to 0.1.
0.1.
Yeah, down to 1/10, correct.
Anything else?
No, I was done.
Great. Commissioner Zangara.
I think you've hit all the points that we've really hashed out and everything. And regarding the lighting, I did the same thing. I don't think you're really going to get that 0-0 unless all those places don't have renters in it, because you're still going to get light coming from all the apartments, windows.
you're going to get that light. And secondly, I do know that there's security issues when it's 000, but you do end up with security issues if it's too bright too, because then you're blinding the person. I've had it done both ways. If it's too bright, your eyes, you want that low, you do like a lower light so your eyes adjust more commonly to the darkness. If it's bright in one area and you're bright and you walk, that does make it too dark. So the lower lighting levels does help with our personal just walking in the dark. It helps a lot. So I commend you on everything that you've done. It really looks great. I look forward to seeing it. That's all I have.
Commissioner Steinle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as we're on the lighting issue, I might jump in on the lighting. I mean, I asked Andrew specifically to find the lighting plan for this particular building, and I think one of the areas where you did measure, you go out the door and almost immediately to the roadway where there's handicap parking and stuff to the right-hand side. And those light levels are 1.0, 0.8, something in that area. I don't know lighting. I know that if I go outside and say, that's a nice level, I like that, Andrew says, or the building plan says 1.0, 0.8, so I figure that's a comfortable level for me. You have, on your center walking path, you have areas that are 0.01. I don't know lighting, so 0.01, is that 100 times less than 1? Is it 10 times less? How is light brightness measured?
Foot candles, in this instance, that's what we're using.
But I mean,
let me just answer, let me make 2 points. The first, that the KSA lighting plan that you're looking at does not include the illumination provided by the bollards that we added to the pathway. And it also does not factor in any of the ambient light that comes from the buildings themselves, from lights being on in the windows of the buildings.
And the lighting plan for this building, did it factor in all the other lighting that would come from the building, et cetera, Andrew?
If you note on the plan what this includes, it includes specifically the pole-mounted luminaires, the building-mounted lights, and the coach lights that are on the garages, that over each garage, that will be on a photo cell, dawn to dusk, dusk to dawn. So it doesn't factor in any of the other ambient light or the bollards.
Okay, let me ask, what that central walking path, can you tell me approximately what the distance of that is, feet-wise?
Top to bottom, it's in excess of 600 feet.
And in that 600 feet, I counted 4 or 5 bollard lights?
If you note on the plan, we have located building-mounted lights, they're LED type variety with the appropriate cutoffs to project the light out and back of the building. And we've only done that in specific locations, but the provisions for the electric are on all of the buildings above the stairwells. I think it's 18 or 20, I think it's 18 feet on the buildings. Or above the exit stairwells, there will be a junction box in that place that can accommodate an additional light. We believe that the lighting, and we carefully evaluated it to make sure that we didn't create too much light. It's going to become a nuisance, and somebody's going to complain about light, it's too bright, I can't sleep. So we're cognizant of that, but we have provisions to add additional lights should it become necessary.
Well, again, I'll just say, I look outside the front entrance to Village Hall where it meets the roadway and the parking area. It's got a value of 1.8, 0.1, or 1 to 0.8. and it seems to be rather dimly illuminated by my standards, but a nice, usable, walkable area. I have no concept what a .01 would be other than 100 times less bright if it's a linear scale. If it's exponential or logarithmic, it could be completely out of bounds. I don't know how you measure.
It's not logarithmic.
You know, so somebody mentioned dark sky. Well, there is a dark sky society.org that recommends illumination levels for things like sidewalks. They recommend the minimum illumination for any kind of sidewalk is 2-foot candles with a maximum of 5-foot candles. Your .01, .02, .08 doesn't even come close to 2. So I think even in the medium lighting level, you're at the .0 level on a lot of the sidewalks.
I'm not familiar with the standards that you're setting, but we did engage Kimley Horn and their lighting expert to take the project as a whole and to evaluate it according to the appropriate current standards. And that letter is in your package, and that standard is 0.9 foot candles on average throughout the community. And we actually exceed that 0.9 foot candles throughout the community. So we have designed it.
I'm not concerned with the community, I'm concerned with the walking path areas. So, I mean, again, that's my concern. I'll move on, and, you know, Andrew, I'd like to know what our ordinance for irrigation is. The petitioner has only irrigated what he calls the high priority areas. Do you have an idea what the green space of your entire project, let's say, excluding the pond areas and detention areas?
We looked specifically, I looked specifically with the landscape designer at the appropriate irrigation areas. The first thing you do is exclude all the bed areas, because we're not irrigating shrubs or other or trees, which actually can be detrimental. Mind you, we will have full-time on-site staff. So if there are areas that need hand watering, they'll get hand watered, but we're not intending to extend the irrigation system. In fact, I've done many very high-end for-sale residential communities, empty nester, maintenance-free, and we've never irrigated beds. We always irrigate turf. So what we've identified are the turf areas. What we've specifically excluded, as Scott described, the native plantings around the primary detention pond. We've also excluded the floodplain basin to the south. Obviously, that's going to be inundated at times. And we've excluded the area to the west of the primary entrance drive, which is principally going to be grasses, trees, shrubs, and with a walking path through there. If that needs hand watering, it'll get hand watered. What we focus our efforts on are the green spaces surrounding the building, not including the plantings that are in the front of the buildings. There's very limited turf in the front of the buildings. There are driveways and other hardscape features, and any of those areas will be hand watered if there are plant materials that need watering. So the big areas are the areas between the buildings and the green space along the fire lane that bisects north-south, around the clubhouse, the central green, the main entrance area, and that grass area. Whoops.
It's me. I was moving toward that drawing.
Oh, thank you.
So I'll ask you
So we've
again,
hit virtually all of the turf areas. The parkway along Northgate Parkway, where we've got the boulders and the, and the trees, that is not designated, but we've hit the main entrances, and then all the turf areas inside. With the exception of the ones that I specifically referenced.
So all the green space that is currently shown on the screen, all of it, the light green and the dark green, can you tell me what % of this dark area compared to all the green space on the property?
I don't know. I don't know that percentage off the top of my head.
Would you say 50%, 40%, 60%? Give me a guess.
I could. 40%, yeah.
And Andrew, what are our requirements for irrigation?
I don't know that we have anything specific in terms of a number. I can double check, but I don't think that we have a specific number. I believe it's that they provide landscape irrigation. And then we've recently asked for definition of the zones proposed to be irrigated. And the expectation is that the petitioner's expert would make a determination as to what would be most appropriate.
Well, I'll just tell you, my expectation is that a lot of the area that is in light green, with the exception of the pond areas, maybe some of the pond area along Northgate Parkway I would like to put in, but all the area around the outside, I think, ought to be irrigated. And,
under the applicable standards for the special use, number 4 includes a consideration of how the location, nature, and extent of the landscaping on the site, whether or not it will hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land or buildings and will not impair the value thereof. So to the extent that there's no specific percentage for irrigation called out in the code, when you vote, you should take into account standard number 4 and to the extent to which the irrigation will or will not hinder or discourage the development and use of adjacent lands.
But our code does say that all landscaping on a property should be irrigated, period. Doesn't say excluding big areas, small areas. Our code says landscaping areas should be irrigated, I believe. Andrew, is that?
I'm trying to open it right now.
And you should also take into account whether the petitioner's plan to have mechanical irrigation in some areas and other watering done by hand with hose connections would meet the irrigation requirement as well.
I don't think my definition of an irrigation system does not include a hose and hand watering. Personal opinion. I think of an irrigation system as some kind of automated sprinkler system installed in the ground that keeps grass green and shrubs appropriate, planting beds appropriately watered. I'm really disappointed in, I thank you for taking the effort to add the bollard lightings, but 5 lights over 600 feet, just, I don't think that it adds that much value. I mean, it's there, yes, but it's nothing great. You talk about the barbecues and the fire pits and whatever, you're going to have somewhere between 200 and 400 residents, maybe more at that facility, and you've got one fire pit shown with 4 chairs. I mean, it's nice, it looks nice, but it's not the kind of amenities that I would like to see in a nice upscale area. I'd like to see, the entrance to your building, something where people can sit outside their building, get to know their neighbors, look at the women walking by and walking their dogs, whatever, women looking at the guys walking their dogs and stuff. I presume you're going to have some single people in the apartment complex, and hopefully they'll be socializing a little bit. And I just don't think that your amenities really go. I remember sitting out on the steps of the entrance to my apartment building when I first moved to Wheeling, right? Just sitting on the steps to the entrance. You don't even have steps there that I know of. You don't have any place to sit down by the entrance that I can see in your pictures. So I mean, I just think you're lacking by my, definition of an upscale facility. I just don't think you've hit my level, so I'm sorry. I'd like to see some more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
The code is not specific as to the exact location of irrigation. It requires protection of beds. There's a weed protection requirement, mulch requirement, and then it requires irrigation. I looked up each mention of irrigation, and the most specific one is that the site plan, the landscape plan submitted with the site plan indicate the areas to be irrigated. And that is, the most specific is 1912, disappeared, 1912, 06, 05, let's see, 040H, under the minimum requirements for a landscape plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorban.
Thank you. Could we go back to the lighting design?
Yeah, I can open that.
All right, you do it.
Is there a particular sheet that you're looking
Well, I guess I can just go ahead and tell you. My concern is, being a female, walking my dog, I hear everybody else talking about the lighting, and I agree. You know, I walk my puppy a lot, and I don't like to walk in the dark. I'm constantly carrying a flashlight, and I think that you could conceivably have a lot of single women or even married women that are going to walk their dog and they're going to be alone. Hate to be a baby, but I like to be safe. And I think that we need to figure out how to get some more lighting, especially along that west side. The other thing is the in-between where there's the few bollards. I think there need to be additional ones there as well. Again, I hate to be a baby, but I don't like to walk in the dark. And I don't think I put myself living there, and I don't think anybody else like myself would want to walk in the dark. So the irrigation piece of it, I'm just curious why you've opted not to do the west side at all. Can you give me some concrete reason?
Limitations and expectations of what needs to be irrigated. And we're trying to find the right balance between maintenance obligations, and that's going to be a primary dog walk area back there. You know, again, if it needs irrigation, it's really a limited window, and we have the capacity to hand water. I see that more as being a naturalistic area back there, and the more manicured portions of the site where the turf is maintained is irrigated.
Just seems to me that you should be irrigating that too, especially the fact that you're going to have a dog walking. There's, people are walking, they're walking their dogs, the dogs eliminate. It just seems to me that you would want to keep that up, and that's, I have to tell you, I like the setup of your plan. I appreciate the fact that you've added these additional amenities. I think that it's a nice place. I just think it could be more. You talk about high quality, and I really have a question about your website. Your website indicates, and it kind of looks to me like we're the poor relative, and I'm very disappointed in that. If you look at it, it all talks about how we're the lower price. Go to the website, you'll see it. If you haven't seen it already, you're looking at me like you're confused, but look at it yourself. I mean, they talk about we're the lower price square footage, and I I find that troubling. I really do. It appears that it comes off like we're the poor relative, and I really want to see better for our residents. We deserve better. We have set a standard with Astor Place, with Park Point, with Prairie Park. I don't want to lower our standard. I want to keep raising the bar. I want more for my village. I want more for my residents. And I think you can deliver it because the bones are there. I think it's a great plan. I think it's a great idea. I just want to see more.
I'm not sure what you're referencing with respect to the website, but I will say unequivocally, this is going to be a spectacular project. You'll be very proud of what we develop. And I think you will, as it comes to fruition, you will find that we've given a tremendous amount of attention to the detail. And my focus is to create value. I've said this hundreds of times. Quality is a function of design, specification, and execution. And those elements need to be in harmony. And my role as a developer is to try and optimize 100 or 1,000 different parameters and pull it together in a cohesive package that creates value. I've seen plenty of examples of tremendous specifications, a lousy plan, and it's worthless. It's worthless, or it's worthless because people don't execute. It's the harmony between the elements. And I have great deference to Scott Ferris, who I describe as the missing part of my brain. He has got the design skills, the ability to see spatially 3 dimensions and understand colors and materials and combinations that, beyond my abilities. And I respect him for it, and I pay him handsomely for it, for his expertise. I think if you look at some of the completed projects that have developed with Scott, with Matt, you would find that we've taken the same level of care and attention to the design elements here, and I think you guys are going to be thrilled with the outcome. I wouldn't be investing my time and my money in this project if I didn't think that it was going to be a home run. I'm quite certain.
That's all my comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Powers.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the amenities. I really do appreciate that. I wanted to ask you about lighting plan 2. Looks like, I guess you went from label A, we went from 29 poles down to 22, and then we added 7 poles. So on those 7 poles, do we basically increase the wattage and turn the light fixture to allow more illumination in the path area?
Yeah, that's a subtle distinction between those two plans. And there are 29 luminaires on both those plans. As I noted, the one takes a different type of luminaire on the west side. Instead of having a cutoff, it allows the spillover light to illuminate the pathway on the west side.
Okay. I guess I'd still like to see bollards there. I know turning light pole, and I guess we're still with the same lighting standard on the poles, because I see the fixture, and I've mentioned before, there are different lighting standards in different villages. It's just disappointing because this is kind of like the staple of the village. This is the entrance, and I was hoping we get something more.
There's a lot of light out there. There is a lot of light out on that path. Looking at these specific values on the screen right now, it's a frame of reference. If you go out the front door and stand in the center of the parking lot between the handicap spot and the spot across from it, the light level is 0.1. The pathway is 0.7, 7 times the illumination level. That is bright. I mean, you are going to be able to walk out there and you will be able to see very clearly. This is not an under-illuminated site at this level. Remember, we've taken the design standards. The overall average was supposed to be 0.9. We exceed that. We're closer to 1.8.
From the staff perspective on this, one of the things that we looked at was the impact.
1.1. Yeah, sorry, I want to
The
clarify.
impact of removing the cutoff, what we were trying to do, it's a little bit difficult to show them side by side, but we looked at this plan side by side with the other plan to see what the impact of switching the cutoff on the fixture was. And what it did basically is some of the light that was reflected toward the parking lot is gone. So if you look at the two next to each other, the lighting levels in the parking lot decreased very slightly. But the lighting area over here, where there was a shield preventing the light, you remove the shield, now the light, there's a significant increase in what happens over here. And that was what we became comfortable with the light level based on that at that point.
Well, I guess my expectation is there, or I was expecting to have some kind of better lighting standard than something that is seen, on every street in the village, something decorative. And it was, my expectation was, okay, what light does that give off? And does it give the same light off as a normal light standard? This is just an upscale, development, a beautiful development. We've done a ton of work, and I just was hoping to see an updated lighting standard and with bollards on the path. But that's really all the comment I have, and I do appreciate you going through the lighting study and everything, because I do see the difference in lighting plan too, I do. But I'd still like to see bollards and a lighting standard.
I don't quite understand your comment. Are you talking about the actual light or the amount of light that it's giving off?
No, the light standard, I don't want to see a 25-foot pole and it just all silver. I want to see something black and decorative. You can go to different towns and see different standards. We're not getting that here.
So you're talking about the actual
Fixture.
fixture?
The fixture and the pole and everything, and what goes on it, yep.
Right. Andrew, could you bring those up?
Sure. It's in this ballpark somewhere in here. That's the soffit.
Yeah.
Are the soffit lights reflected in the plan that you know of?
Those are under the entrances.
Okay. This is the
So
wall
that's just
mounted.
eliminating the stoops of the.
This one is the wall mounted one, I believe.
Yeah, it's similar. And again, we're specifying the latest and greatest in lighting. That's the coach light. That's obviously more decorative in nature. But those fixtures are LED light fixtures. So they're designed by their nature to dissipate heat, to allow for the longevity of the LED. And they're really designed in a way to be nondescript by day and cast a very pleasant light at night. I believe the specification is 4,000 degrees K, which is, I prefer the 3,000 degree Kelvin light. It's a little warmer. It's more like an incandescent light bulb, but from effectiveness, efficiency, some of the street lights you get 5,000, 6,000. Those are super bluish light, and they're very efficient, but they're not very comforting. They feel too cold. So the 4,000 K is the lowest temperature rating that the manufacturers provide in this type of general, street and parking illumination.
I'm not so much, okay, Andrew, can you go back one page? 120 looks like. That's what I'm talking about. A different type of pole. I think that's a standard village pole. I'd like to see something decorative to, make it look different than, what we have in the village now. There are poles, you go to different communities and you do see that a lot, and I just was hoping we get something different with some bollards. I guess the question was anything else investigated where that amount of lighting, if it was insufficient, maybe we would need bollards on the side, against the path, but a different type of lighting standard would have been nice. That's what I have to say.
These are for the parking areas?
Yes.
Correct. the bollards are for the 600-foot walking path, right?
Correct.
Okay. And these, the actual light is going to be, in some areas, modified to give lighting to the walking path on the west side.
Yes. We've removed the cutoff so that light disperses more evenly rather than being shielded and casting only towards the road. Now it is a more uniform dispersion pattern, so it illuminates the pathway as well.
In this, I'm sorry, Commissioner Powers, did you have anything else?
I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. In your work here, were there, did you, I'm sure you learned something from the Vernon Hills development. Did you bring those lessons learned here and like give some examples of what you've done here?
In terms of product enhancements or
Yeah.
modifications?
Right.
You know, one of the subtle distinctions from Vernon Hills here is we separated the clubhouse and the pool building. And that's really more of a function of the linear nature of the green space. But we actually have the outdoor fireplace as well as the fire pit. So from the initial plan that we showed you, we had added a fireplace, a see-through fireplace, and we thought, hey, that's a great feature. We like the design element. Let's add it in here in Wheeling as well. So we extended that covered porch that Scott referenced so people will be able to sit outside underneath the covered area with that two-sided fireplace that benefits inside and outside. And that's separate and apart from the fire circle that is a little bit adjacent, you know, further away from it, but still within the clubhouse area. Some of the distinctions in the buildings, we've added brick per your request. We've also, we've worked very hard with the village staff in terms of the design details and the construction methodologies to meet the Type 3A code construction. And we're also right now evaluating increasing the tub sizes. We're probably going to move towards larger tubs and shower enclosures where we can, given the parameters of the individual units. Some of the other refinements, you know, we take a lot of care and attention to look at the details. I think the bike room, the bocce court. That's something that doesn't exist over there. We want to provide another focal point. The volleyball court, that's something that doesn't exist over there. The bike storage room, that's part of that separate building that serves the pool house. That's actually going to be you know, heated storage year-round for bicycles. You know, there's a lot of subtle things that we focus on. We're always trying to make the next product better than the last one we built because you're only as good as your last project.
I have a real good friend that's got a place in Arizona, and similar to the point that they have a lot of green space and a pool area and a clubhouse. This sort of reminds me of it, but that, of course, is ownership. And the interesting thing is that as far as the charcoal grills all over the place, they attempted to do that, and as it turns out, one, they're not used, and two, they're just for holding charcoal. And the amenities that you have here are very similar to a townhouse development. And somebody made the comment on the board about this not being ordinary. I think it's more than ordinary. I believe that this is one of the, for a rental subdivision, I think this is one of the better ones that we've seen here. And I've been on the board for 10 years, so I probably haven't seen too many. But there seems to be questions about lighting and irrigation that I'm getting a sense that, well, the board is, the plan commission is a bit all over. On the ends, I've heard that you could do better as far as the overall development goes. Coming in a little bit, I heard that there's lighting. There's still a lighting concern. Personally, I don't see that because you have the lighting. Could more ballards be added to that walking path? I don't know. Is that something that that conceivably could be added? More than the 5 ballards that you're adding? Can we add more?
It could be added. Again, we've tried to strike the appropriate balance, and I think you're going to be floored how nice this looks when we're all finished. And keep in mind that we're trying to make this as attractive as possible to as many people, to draw people into Wheeling and specifically to our community. So if things don't work, we're going to fix them. We are of a mind to put a quality product in the street and command the highest rents possible within the marketplace. And if we have to add features or address deficiencies as we go along, we're not averse to doing so. We're trying to maximize the value, and the way to do that is to provide the best experience for our residents. So this is going to be a living, breathing project and a community that will receive feedback from our residents, and we'll address that feedback accordingly.
Any comments? Yes.
I only have one. I would direct your attention to Building 5, where I see in your plan the 0.0. And that's right along the entrance to the building. I don't know if that's a mistake, because I would think that the entrances to the building should be lighted.
I think that is the same question that I was asking. Is the soffit light at each of those entrances might not actually be part of the calculation?
Correct. So
the soffit light will shine directly down at the entrance.
And it's certainly going to cast a glow throughout there. The photometric study is prepared by our consulting firm is KSA, and they get the individual photometrics from each luminaire, from the manufacturer. And so they plug it in a location and height according to, they take that module, they put it into their computer program, and they can model the illumination provided by those fixtures. It does not pick up the light that's coming off of the buildings or out the windows. We did go back and have them add the illumination that's coming from the coach lights, but I don't believe we picked up all the light that's coming from the lobbies themselves through the glass doors in the lobby.
And those lights we're talking are physically located?
Yeah, those are right there. There's going to be a recessed can obviously illuminating that stoop.
By the building code, they also have to provide light at every single exit of a building.
Right.
So and this is...
But that 0.0 goes out pretty far.
It doesn't pick up the light that particular study only picks up the pole-mounted ones, the building-mounted ones up high. Andrew, can you zoom out a little bit?
Sure.
So everywhere you see those pathways connecting to the back doors, look at C28 and C27. Each of the buildings, as I mentioned, will be designed with the electrical junction box in the same location over that door. We were trying to illuminate the pathway using those LED fixtures, but not over-illuminate. If we determine that there's more light needed on that building, we'll add another wall mount fixture at the given junction box that's already in place. So we have provisions to more than double the illumination down that central green. We don't want to over-illuminate.
I understand, but you're asking us to approve something that's got 0.0.
It does.
And I won't do it.
Okay.
I believe
maybe
the
I should say it
petitioner-
more specifically. That does not pick up the light that's under the stoop. This photometric study doesn't pick up the light that's under the stoop.
You go to every other building in this plan, and it's illuminated.
That's right, but the
We're happy to-
evidence
you know,
in the
if
record.
If it addresses the issue, I'm happy to add a fixture there.
Can I make a comment? The evidence in the record now shows that there is lighting in the area where it shows 0.0 because the lighting plan does not reflect all of the lighting on the site. I believe that's what you said, correct? Thank you.
So we have.
But that's not shown on the plan, is it?
No, that's been made clear. The plan only shows certain of the fixtures, not all of the fixtures.
Okay, then let's do another example, the central walkway between building 4 and 5. Andrew, could you zoom probably down a little bit? And right at the top, going between 4 and 5, the central path lighting is 0.00, 0.01. You know, that central path lighting is the area that I'm concerned about. I would like people to feel comfortable walking on that central path lightweight area. And if you say that there is building illumination, I'd like to see it on the light plan. You know, tell me that the minimum light level on the central walkway everywhere, not average, is some number. Tell me what that number is going to be.
I don't know what that number is, but I do know.
Neither do I.
Okay, I do know this, that this plan does not show the bollards that we added along the pathway.
I don't think there are any bollards here, right?
Yeah, there's one right in that corner.
It also does not show, there's a light, a decorative light of some sort.
You know, so, anyway, if you gave me a number, you know, and said 0.5 everywhere along the walking path, I'd be happy, you know, but I see 0.1, 0.0, and unless I see some number that is reality.
0.1 is the same light level that we measured in the middle of the parking lot. 0.1.
I'm at a walking path in the middle of your complex. I'm not in the middle of my parking lot.
What's 0.0 then? Is that the absence of light?
I think that'd be more like 0.000, but I'm not the expert.
Neither am I. But I see 0.0, and that just doesn't cut it.
The plan has been designed by experts, and we've provided testimony in the record and in writing for you that demonstrates that the lighting as proposed meets the standards, and it strikes the appropriate balance between the 4 criteria that we identified in my letter, safety and security being one, the light pollution and dark sky initiative being another, the energy efficiency, and then the physiological effects of ambient light levels on people trying to sleep. So we believe that our lighting plan strikes the appropriate balance and meets the standards.
So, Mr. James, is this the lighting plan that you've submitted, lighting plan 2, and the irrigation plan, which are the questions here, are those your final plans that you're going to go with, that you're not going to make any adjustments to? Because
those are the plans that we're seeking approval for tonight and before the board. I would tell you that as the owner and having a vested interest in the quality, safety, security of this community, the ambiance, that we're always willing to consider whether or not there's a deficiency. But to make changes at this point in time based upon our layman's evaluation, when we've hired experts and we've provided the testimony to show, demonstrate that this plan is probably the most well thought out lighting plan, certainly the most intensely scrutinized lighting plan that I've personally experienced. And I think that, I know that if it is found to be deficient when we construct it, we will come back and make amendments.
And also, okay, so this is what you're going with on the lighting plan and the irrigation plan. What I've heard is, and I'm not sure the consensus here, and I'm going to ask because based upon what I'm hearing on the lighting plan is that right now it's deficient. Based upon what I'm hearing on the commission. And, but as far as the irrigation plan, let's talk about the irrigation plan, the west side, and there are other areas that, that the commission pointed out that they felt should be irrigated. Again, looking at this plan, is this the plan that you're not going to make any changes to it based upon what I've heard here?
We strongly believe that the plan that we've presented is a very high-quality plan that is appropriate for this community and that it satisfies the conditions of the ordinance, satisfies or exceeds the conditions of the ordinance.
Okay. So based upon that, I'm going to call for a vote on this. So, because there is no further discussion that's really needed on this. Okay. Yes.
One more question. The clubhouse area, you've not shown any kind of lights for that. I assume you're going to have lights in there too.
Oh, yeah.
Which would definitely
yeah, there's
cover
extra
some
lighting
of
on the
that
building.
dark area that we were just talking about. So yeah, you're going to have, I assume, wall lights and
Yes.
party lights or something up there over the bocce
There will be,
court.
yeah, there will be exterior light fixtures around the building illuminating the area. Yes.
So that would cover
There'll
some of
definitely be
that.
spillover light from that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion for 2013 12B special use plan approval of multifamily final planned unit development. Do I hear a motion?
Can I just read briefly what this is?
Sure.
This motion, the one that's actually written into the staff report on the supplemental package, includes all of the plans that were part of the original package. The supplemental plans, where appropriate, have been substituted. It includes the, just to read down the list, just for the record while we're here. The final PUD plan narrative, the overall site plan, the landscape plan, including all the 18 pages associated with it, as well as the package that was just submitted. Snow removal plan, the building elevations for the apartment buildings, the apartment building floor plan, the unit floor plans, the clubhouse, pool house elevations, the clubhouse and pool house floor plan, the images of the building materials and the color samples submitted during the review, construction type narrative, which is the architect's description of the wall section detail itself, the photometric plan labeled lighting option 2, which is the one with the cutoffs removed to light the western path, the village standard streetlight spec, the parking and roadway light fixture cut sheet, the lighting specification sheet for all the additional building mounted lights, the site amenity location plan, the clubhouse area amenity detail plan, images of the proposed site furnishings, the irrigation zone detail plan, and the 9-sheet final engineering plan draft presented by Kinley Horn, as well as the Northgate Parkway off-site sidewalk plan. This motion includes the following relief from the Wheeling Municipal Code. Reduction of covered parking from 288 stalls to 90 stalls. Reduction in total parking from 540 stalls to 539 stalls. Number 3, allowing 10 principal buildings on a single lot. Number 4, allow the development to provide the minimum illumination level as shown on the plans. Number 5, allow the proposed detention area to be located approximately 10 to 12 feet from Northgate Parkway, while the code requires the basin to be 32 feet based on its depth. Number 6, allow the separation of domestic water supply and fire suppression located within the fire alarm control panel room rather than at the main. The conditions of approval then do qualify that last one, actually. The conditions of approval, number 1, total number of storage units shall match the number of dwelling units in each building with various sizes permitted. Number 2, that the redevelopment agreement associated with the development, including references to the TIF monetary request and off-site compensatory storage, shall be submitted and approved prior to or concurrent with the final PUD approval by the village board, with the understanding that a draft RDA is acceptable pending the establishment of the TIF district. Number 3, that boulders may be utilized to prevent vehicles from entering the detention pond. Number 4, that the development include a lease restriction prohibiting grills and similar devices from being used on the balconies. And number 5, that the domestic and fire suppression water service line shall be separated at the main unless the village board authorizes the proposed separation within the FACP room.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, with a question.
Yes.
I think it was condition number 4 or 5 way back about the lighting plan. You said that it should be developed according to the lighting plan as depicted in the packet that we just heard testimony was wrong and didn't reflect accurate lighting from other sources. So how do we, I don't want to lock us into something that is, we've heard testimony isn't correct.
I think that you could add a condition, a 6th condition, that the bollard lights and soffit lights presented can be added, are part of the approval. The fixtures are part of the approval, but you can add a condition of approval that makes it clear that those lights are...
Change the...
Yes.
Add value to the plan, not depreciate it.
And you have to be specific that it's option 2 or?
That I did read. Yes, that's in there. But the soffit lights, bollard lights, and clubhouse decorated, I don't know how to phrase that, clubhouse area lights.
Exterior lighting, yeah.
That reads, condition number 6 then, that the soffit lights, bollard lights, and clubhouse area lights shall be added to the construction documents.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Stylen. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stylen, second by Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Stylen.
I vote no. Would you like to hear my reasons now or later?
We'll go through it after we have a vote.
Commissioner Johnson votes yes. Commissioner Dorband.
No.
Commissioner Powers.
No.
Commissioner Schaaf.
No.
Commissioner Zangara.
I vote yes.
Chairman Rafato.
I vote yes.
3 yes, 4 no.
Failed by 4 to 3. So we will go through, we are a recommending board, sir, so this will go to the, how do you explain that, Commissioner Jennings? It will go to the board.
It goes to the village board reviews this and does not have a supermajority requirement based on it as a recommendation. The village board vote is a straight up or down vote as well. So it's a 4-3 requirement of the board. The recommendation, the count of votes from the plan commission does not trigger an additional requirement of the board.
So before we go to the next docket,
Thank you.
wait, not done yet. Not done yet.
We have your plat.
We have your plat to go through yet, but Commissioner, for those that voted no, you get an explanation, starting with Commissioner Schaaf.
I voted no because Building 5 is way below what I consider any kind of a standard. Also, the west side is not at all irrigated.
If the commissioners could please include the number of the standards that they believe were not met, that'll help the record.
The special use standard?
Thank you.
Right. and you need to include the special use standard. Those are on, starting on page 54.
Could I ask for further clarification? Building 5 is the same building type as all the other buildings. What differentiates it from the others? In the comment that was just made. I don't understand that remark.
I believe,
The way you've got it identified on the drawings, I believe, is what he's referring to.
well, I'm not sure.
Well,
I don't know that is.
Is there something specific about that building that's different than the others? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yes, the lighting plan.
Okay, the lighting.
It's 0.0, 0.1.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And those
that's
are
what I was
the
asking.
entrance, to the entrances. They're off of the off of the, that vertical path.
Okay. So back to voting no as specific to a special use, 1 through 6, that are there, they are, again, special use necessary for public convenience at the proposed location. Special use will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is to be located. State how the location, size of special use, nature, and intensity of the operation involved in or conducted in conjunction with it, the size of the site in relation to it, and location of the site with respect to streets giving access to it will be in harmony with and will not impede the normal, appropriate, and orderly development of this district in which it is to be located and development of surrounding properties. 4, state how the location, nature, and height of the buildings, walls, fences, and the nature and extent of the landscaping on the site shall be such that the use will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land, buildings, and will not impair the value thereof. 5, state how the parking areas will be adequate size for the particular use location, properly located, suitably screened from adjoining residential uses. Entrance and exit drives shall be laid out so as to prevent traffic hazards, nuisances, and development will not cause traffic congestion. And state how the special use will conform to all appropriate regulations and standards of the zoning district in which it is to be located. Those are the 6 special use. So to be specific, as Mr. Smith asked.
Okay, and I don't have that.
Commissioner Powers.
I don't have it either.
Commissioner Stylen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll see if I can put this together. I think standard 3.
Well, unfortunately, we had commissioners that voted no that should understand why they're voting no. So, please continue.
Okay,
Sir,
I think...
I think it seems a shame to throw the baby out with the bathwater here.
No.
And would wonder if it'd be possible to separate the recommendation of the project as a whole from the lighting and the irrigation.
We can't. It's all part of the special use.
All right.
So Commissioner Stylen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Standard number 3 and 6 relating to zoning and comprehensive plan. I do not believe that the site is zoned MXT, which is supposed to be a mixed use. On the comprehensive plan, it's also designated as a mixed use environment. This is clearly a single use environment. In addition, we have a mixed use transit-oriented component. I'd like to see an easement to the south property, allowing potential future access that wasn't considered or petitioner didn't want to do it at all. I don't know where the PUD standards fit in. My belief is that the purpose of a PUD is to kind of give a little trade-off. We'll give you a higher building, a little bit more density, and in return we get something back, green space, whatever. I believe that was the purpose of the PUD ordinance to do those kind of trade-offs, variations versus what we can get back in return. I don't really see that we got anything back. Criteria 2, masonry, our ordinances clearly call for a lot more masonry. Petitioner didn't want to do it. Points 5 and number 3 in the variation standards, parking and covered parking. I don't believe that there was any hardship shown on the parking areas. Standard number 6, lighting. I don't think it's appropriate for the zoning area. I don't believe that it meets our codes. Number 4, I believe the landscaping, unfortunately, I don't believe that the irrigation comes close to our expectations for the amount of green space that they have that should be irrigated. And those are my points.
Thank you, Commissioner Steinle. Commissioner Dorban.
Yes, mine would be the MXT piece as well as the masonry piece.
Thank you. And that was specific to, I think, standard 3, I believe.
Could be 3 and 6
3
or
and 6,
variation
right.
number 2.
3 and 6, right. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then moving to PC 14-4, preliminary plat of subdivision. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Can we just review that real quick? You're consolidating 2 properties into one physical property of record?
Yes. Andrew?
Yes, hang on one second.
He's bringing it up. Thank you, Commissioner Steinle, for, should have discussed that.
Anybody know what page it's on? It should be right around here. The end of the last original packet. There we go.
Unfortunately, it's all the terminology. Subdivision, I think of as breaking things up.
and
You're
bringing it
really
together.
combining it, so.
So the idea with this then is to consolidate the 2 lots, the church parcel as well as the former Kinney Construction parcel. What you see here, if you were to zoom into it, is a non-easement area defined on each building. There would be easement areas for the major utilities defined. There's a detention area that's shown as a stormwater management easement of some sort, I believe. But as you said, it's a consolidation. Technically still a preliminary plat of subdivision, but it's a consolidation in this case.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Steinle, second by Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Steinle.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson, I say yes. Commissioner Dorband.
Yes.
Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara.
Yes.
And Chairman Rafano.
Yes. Do we need a motion to close?
It's fine. You can. It's not technically a new public hearing.
Okay, great, thank you. You'll have something to sign, and Mr. Jennings, the meeting?
We will be in touch with the petitioner regarding the meeting date. The timing of this is subject to the redevelopment agreement, and we're working on the timing of that redevelopment agreement right now with the petitioner.
Okay.
So, both of those, I believe, we're anticipating to coordinate on the same date. So we have a little bit of additional coordination to do prior to that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have to close this?
I don't suppose it would hurt. I don't believe it's technically a new public hearing now.
Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
if it was open, is now closed.
Right, it is now closed. If it wasn't closed before, it's not closed. Why don't we just take a couple of minutes before we go into approval of minutes and other business? Stick around, you have to sign something. Don't let me go. approval of the minutes for May 15th. I see one change. We have at the top Chairman Pro Tem Johnson, but I happen to be mentioned in the roll call. So if that could be changed.
Yes, we have that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
A motion to approve the minutes with the change?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, okay. Other business,
Did we approve both of them?
you only approved the minutes. You don't
We're
approve-
just- There's another
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry. Whew, okay.
It's hiding down there. in that
Yeah,
second line.
it's hiding. Hold on one second.
It would be May 22nd.
Yeah, I know that. Approval of minutes of May 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now.
Other business. Normally, well, I'll start out with other business. At our workshop, a couple of weeks ago, end of May 31st, which I thought was a good workshop, some lively discussion, to say the least, but some good discussion. I think it was clear, not I think, I know it was clear that we have a number of items that we, specifically from that meeting, that I heard that we need to, think workshop and discuss. And I'm going to point out workshop on the code on masonry, which we heard again today. Uses in all of our areas, and our lighting plan. And I know we were specifically talking about lighting plan along Dundee Road, but also Commissioner Stylen, I think you've uncovered, or I don't know who mentioned it on the board, specifically to this, we don't have any lighting standards around a complex like this for walkways. We don't have anything like that I think we should consider. I don't know if it's code, how we amend that, or what. So those are a number of items that we have. And in addition, we have our priority list that we've discussed, that we, and it's probably a certain extent me not pushing to put together a plan where we can have items, give staff direction as to what we want to review next, workshop next, so we have a plan in place where we can either a light meeting or a meeting that has no agenda items that we could turn into a workshop. But in order to do that, we need to have an agenda, and that the agenda could be a one item that says we're going to workshop this and discuss this, but we also need staff to provide that, and staff to be here to provide some information as a basis to have our discussions. Okay. Now, I have said on occasion that, I want to have some structure around meetings. And I may have said that I don't want to have a meeting just to have a meeting. And I still mean that, because we have to have something that we're going to discuss that will produce something. Okay? We just can't come here and have no agenda, because I don't think from a
Open Meetings Act.
Open Meetings Act that we can do that. We have to have an agenda to start with. So I know we have, I mean, I never meant that to say that we should have meetings, not have a meeting next week. I've never meant to say that, and if somebody took it that way, that's not the way I meant it. What I've always said is that some structure of what we're going to discuss, because when we have a meeting, if anybody's worked in the business world, you've gone to a meeting and nothing comes out of it, you find it very frustrating. And I probably have one of those a day. You go into there and nobody comes with an agenda and people start talking, and I find it very frustrating. So that's what I mean by meeting just for the sake of meeting. There should be some content there, and staff, staff can provide things in that nature. So we have a number of things that, 3 things, at least from our workshop. I don't know if anybody heard anything else at that workshop that we, with the village board, that we needed to bring out. I don't know, did anybody hear anything else besides the masonry, the uses in each of our zones, and lighting? Was there anything else that came out of that?
There was some landscaping stuff, some landscaping issues, and one of the suggestions was to hire outside help for that, and I think they have lost sight that there is staff, village staff in the forestry department, but there were landscaping issues that were talked about.
One of the things that was mentioned, Jim, was staff holding up, bringing them to us if they didn't have a landscaping plan complete.
I think that's where it started.
Yeah.
And it progressed.
So that doesn't get here, and then we end up telling them to come back after you get a landscape plan, trying to get the complete package up front.
Okay.
Which we've mentioned before.
Okay. Well, that is more probably around a complete packet, right? Is where I think we were going with that. Though I have heard from commission members the quality of a landscape plan sometimes leaves a bit to be desired, but when you've got a small company who you're probably the guy that's doing the remodeling is also going to do a landscape plan, I don't know, Andrew, how can we get around that? And maybe that's something that we could put in a workshop, something like that. How do we put some form around the landscape plan? I mean, you guys did a great job when you had your subcommittee and you put all of that information together, but right now it's just languishing somewhere because we couldn't get our RFP.
Yeah, we tried to do the RFP and didn't get a response. So we were kind of regrouping from that at this point.
But I think it would be worth a discussion. I mean, some simple things like, is a hand-drawn plan acceptable, or does it have to be computer graphics oriented, right? Is a hand-drawn plan, as long as it has quantity and type of stuff? I mean, we could probably sit down and come up with a number of what is the minimum requirement for a landscaping plan.
Right. Yeah, we could. Maybe we can tie that to something else that we tie it to something around masonry. I mean, they're disparate, but we bring it together into one meeting. Yes, Mr. Smith?
Yes, you mentioned the necessity of having an agenda and the legal requirements. Briefly, an agenda must be posted for any meeting under the Illinois Open Meetings Act. Anytime there are more than 2 plan commissioners together in one place discussing the business of this body, that is a meeting. So when you all meet here, an agenda is posted 48 hours ahead of time, and you can discuss any matter, whether or not it's on an agenda, but you can only take action on items that are listed for action on an agenda. From a use of village resources perspective, it makes sense to have staff and yourselves prepare ahead of time to speak on items, so to list them for discussion on an agenda, which is why you often find them, even when they're not for action, listed on an agenda.
What about a workshop? Is when we consider one of our meetings a workshop, is it any different, or is a meeting a meeting a meeting?
A meeting is when there are 3 or more of this body anywhere talking about the business of this body. So if you are here at a workshop meeting, it still has the agenda posting requirement, which means that more than 48 hours or more ahead of the beginning of the meeting, you must post the agenda, minutes have to be taken, public comment has to be allowed, etc. So regardless of what you call the meeting, those legal requirements still apply.
Okay. I think in our terminology, though, a workshop, we don't vote on anything. We just have discussion.
Okay. Okay. So with that said, Andrew, can you bring that up, or?
I think so. Okay, so this was our last discussion of this was the week, I believe it was the week before the joint workshop meeting.
Right.
So this has been updated based on that discussion, as well as there's a note on the this joint meeting note was added after that fact.
Mm-hmm.
Just going down the list, the primary one, most of these are part of a Title 19 workshop. The zoning code would be the masonry discussion, PUD requirements, the lighting table, the land use table, the use classification table, so the Appendix A of the zoning code. So we have that list going now. We've taken the list that was from the joint meeting, we've added to it some additional points that have come up both at the joint meeting and since then. So that's under the general heading of Title 19 discussion.
But can we dive deep into Title 19, like masonry and the lighting, and break those out?
Can you do a specific workshop on masonry?
Yeah, that eventually rolls up to sure. Title 19.
Sure you can.
Is where I would think that would be beneficial, because I think sometimes we get overwhelmed. I know I do when we have a lot of.
Sure, we did. I would say comparable to that. We did break out the parking, and we did several workshops on parking, and then brought it back with other items that didn't require as much thought.
So what I'm looking for, Andrew, is, I've been thinking about this since the meeting, is a way for, and I may have mentioned it, a way for us to have a skeleton of things that are coming up. So when, and it'd behoove you and I and Brooke to look ahead to say, okay, this could be a light meeting or no meeting, and let's slot these things in here. Let's be prepared to have at least a skeleton around some of these things that we then can discuss, a framework that we can discuss at one of these meetings where it's light. We might have a couple of consent items and like something like tonight probably wouldn't have been an ideal night. But if we would have had maybe items for review, the A1, the minor site plan approval, and nothing else after that, that we could put something in there. Because my sense is that President Argyris wants us to act quickly on these things. And I realize that it takes time, that, you know, this is a percentage of your job, and it's probably a small percentage of your job, but it is part of your job. And, you know, and I'm trying to weigh that also. So if we can have that in front of us, and it's really incumbent upon me to move that forward, okay? Because we've got a lot of talented people on this board that have input that we could build some things around this.
Sure. What we would need to determine then is which one of these 12 topics is the one that you want to prepare for next.
Okay. Commissioner Stylin, you had a comment?
I have a question for Andrew. I think one of the big concerns I heard at the village board meeting and prior meetings of this commission was the MXT PUD masonry is determined at concept approval time. Andrew, do you think there's a need to discuss that anymore in any kind of detail? Do you understand?
Sure, I think those are two different things combined in one. So the masonry requirement itself, the terminology is something that we're looking at redrafting right now, coming up with just taking the word masonry out, having a list of building materials, acceptable building materials. One concept that we've discussed is having a requirement that you identify your primary building materials for the purpose of concept discussion. It does not make it a binding requirement, but you're required to identify it.
Right.
That way there's a discussion that occurs at concept, whether or not it's formal, and in the approval sense, there's a discussion. So that ties then into the other section, which is the actual language of the timing of it. So we do have a couple ideas of how to phrase that.
But I mean, a lot of those things that we might have a great deal of concern on, you know, I think Andrew probably has a good handle on a lot of those subjects too, Jim. So,
Right.
You know, he might have a good idea of solution up front that won't take too much of his time to bring to us, you know what I mean?
So do we cherry pick and get the low-hanging fruit, or?
Well, but I think Andrew and you guys can work together, you know, depending upon how much time Andrew has to put something together. He might have something quick and dirty ready to go. It might not be the highest thing on the priority list, you know what I mean?
So, okay, so I completely understand that.
I think what I would ask on the behalf of the staff, though, is that if the idea is to be able to insert something at a point, the notice for that, we need to know, you know, one, maybe two projects that you'd like us to put something together on. The bulk of our time on a weekly basis is probably spent just managing the other items, and most of those items that we're managing are not on that week's agenda. They're a month out, 2 months out, 3 months out.
Right.
And so the speed at which we are working on those projects and the intensity of the review of those projects is really what determines how much time we have to work on a long-term project.
So how, like for instance, next week, there's nothing on the agenda.
Yes.
How far in advance, and maybe you don't know, how far in advance did you know that that was going to be a light agenda meeting or nothing at all?
In this case, probably end of May, we had scheduled a a special meeting on June 5th. Right around then, we had two public hearing items that could have gone either the 19th or the following week. Both of those go to the same board meeting. So we decided, based on the board meeting schedule, that would be the meeting that would be light, and that we would not schedule a public hearing given the extra meeting. The extra meeting ended up not happening after we made that decision.
So in May, end of May, if I start looking, or middle of May, if I start looking at the June agenda items, we can start then saying, okay, this looks like a meeting where it's going to be light, you have nothing, can you get something prepared for us?
There's basically two ways to do it. We've got one coming up, we expected something, it disappeared, we've got a week or two.
And I know those you can't control. I mean, because you could have something for next week and the guy this week could have said, we're canceling. But then we know it's a light meeting. So we could slot something in there if you knew far enough in advance that, we can get that in there.
The planning division staff does prepare materials for the village board, not just the plan commission. So we do have other deadlines associated with our jobs. So we do have, sometimes we have an idea of what may happen. I had a meeting today where we were looking at October for the village board review of a project. So we're talking about what October meeting they might go to if they can get through certain. So some of this stuff we have a very long, the horizon is far out there, and some of it's faster. But it is, the stuff that comes to you in a meeting is not everything. There are items that you do not have to review that the staff still has to review. So but it's probably more realistic for us to have one or two items and have them in some stage of readiness.
Right, and that's what I'm looking for, right.
So if we could identify what's the next one or two things that you'd like to see, then we can try to have them in the hopper.
What do we have here? I mean, what do we have on this, that?
There's the streetlight discussion.
Yep, I like that one.
This is one aspect of the Title 19 workshop, which is the industrial business uses, how to handle non-industrial uses in the industrial district. The overlay question was not explicitly discussed at the joint meeting. Triggers, the trigger question for addressing the two different types of nonconformities is another related to Title 19.
Well, I think here would be my three recommendations. The lighting, the masonry questions around that, which I think you probably have a pretty good handle that we could probably get rid of. I mean, and then I think this landscaping we could knock out quickly. Those three.
Do not what was listed on the RFP, but do a
right. Talking about plans, landscape plans, and what we as a commission would accept and work through that. And maybe, something like that is as simple as, and maybe I'm making this too simple, is what we've seen as a bad plan, what we've seen as a semi-good plan, and then something really good, and throw that into a packet for us. And, I don't think we need a lot of explanation around that, because I think we've all been on here enough to know what.
But I think the problem comes in Jim, is trying to put stuff like this into an ordinance, if that's the way we're thinking, might be a little bit difficult. And let me give you an example. A gas station comes in, wants to change their, the car wash comes in, wants to change just a little bit of their property. And the landscaping plan, I mean, is just very small, minuscule. We might be willing to accept a paper napkin, you know what I mean? Versus a multi-million-dollar project that comes in with 6 buildings, 20 acres.
Well,
You might want something, you might demand something a lot more professional. So can you set,
yeah, I mean, those are things that, and maybe from that, we make the decision, okay, maybe we should codify it, and maybe we shouldn't. And then then we just put some standards behind it instead of.
or policies or
policy,
something?
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, exactly, right, yeah. But it's an output.
Right.
Okay? And the reason why I picked those 3, and then I think the 4th one really should be the uses, because, you know, that, I think, got a lot of discussion at our workshop, or joint meeting. As Mr. Smith says, there's no difference. I'll have to remember that. So now the question is, I know this is very short notice, and if you say you can't do it, I understand that because it is short notice. Are one of these 3 items, can we get anything together for next week? And I understand if you can't, and what you and I and Brooke have to do is then plan out when I talk to you, plan out what we have going on, and you can tell me at a high level what's going on in these meetings, and then try to slot that so then you know what we're looking for.
So the first question, it's a matter of expectation. I mean, the Plan Commission had previously decided not to have meetings without any kind of background material. So if we have a need to put together background materials, then I don't think that we are adequately prepared right now to hand you what we've got. I mean, I can tell you the thoughts that we've had, like I just did with the building material standards. I can tell you where we're thinking of. We have not researched it. There was a request from the board to put together some material regarding the quality of some of these newer building materials. We have bits and pieces of that. We received some manufacturer specifications. So it all depends on what the preparation expectation is. If you have a expectation of receiving something, then we don't have something to hand you. This meeting, the meeting was fairly recent. We presented topics to both the Plan Commission and Board only on May 27th, so we haven't actually written down much since then.
Okay.
I got a microphone that's got its own mind.
Okay.
Jim, can I ask you a question? Let me give you something.
Sure.
This is for Andrew too. I mean, in rummaging around the internet, I found something from darkskysociety.org. I think they referenced that today about some minimum lighting standard, their minimum lighting standards for various places and stuff. I mean, is that something generically that we could bring to the commission and ask you guys, you know, do we have anything like this, like that? Could we introduce something like this? You know what I mean? Just as a discussion point.
Yeah, the staff report on this week does mention that based on what the petitioner submitted us last week, it's come to our attention that our own code does not meet the state code. and approving a lighting plan that meets our code would put us in direct conflict with the state code. That is new information. We have to look into it. The state code is similar to what some other states have done. It's an energy efficiency ordinance. I shouldn't say ordinance. It's an energy efficiency act where the municipalities, including home rule municipalities, are obligated to meet that standard. The exception is if you passed a lighting standard that exceeds their expectations prior to the date where they adopted it. So we're fairly certain, based on a review of the state act last week, that we have to change our code because we can't approve another lighting plan that meets our code anymore.
And I think that group goes into those kind of levels. But I mean, just in general, is something we find that we could have a short discussion on, is that kind of input germane to what?
It's germane, but I think what we are trying to establish with these workshops is a level of productivity toward the end goal. If we have 5 minutes of discussion, I don't think that it's an efficient use of the IT staff overtime, or we pay somebody to do the minutes. I don't think it's an efficient use of scheduling the public meeting for a 5-minute. That's my opinion from the village staff standpoint. So if the village manager reviews that, I would suspect that he would direct me through the CD director to not hold a meeting where we have an expectation of a very short discussion. But that's just from the standpoint of looking out for staff resources. So what we try to do is have enough put together that we think that we can have a productive dialogue for a good, maybe an hour, as sort of the minimum standard. Do we think that this discussion can keep going and produce, at the end of the day, direction for us to start drafting an amendment? And that's kind of the standard by which we are looking at some of these, is what kind of direction can we take from that meeting to further prepare for the more formal action?
So, based upon what I heard is that we don't have enough time for next week.
We don't have enough time to prepare a...
Right. But then based upon what you said, village manager, CD, coming down that way, they probably wouldn't look kindly on us having a meeting, without something with more substance to it. So based upon that, based upon what I said, what I recommended, what I'd like to do, Andrew, then is I can meet with you guys next week, talk to you next week to review the next 6 weeks, 2 months of meetings.
Sure.
And slot these things into those meetings that we have where we think it's light, heavy, and then present that to the commission so they know that these are coming in the future. Is that fair enough for everybody?
And I think that if we have a handful of topics, we can prepare a half-hour chunk on several. And if we have time, we have a light agenda, we can put 1.5 hour chunk in.
Right, and that's what I'm looking for.
We can put 2.5 hour chunks in.
And that's what I'm looking for from you guys, to tell me what's coming up, so then we can slot these, knowing here's what we're going to be discussing at this meeting. This meeting we have nothing. We can slot these 3 things in here and go forward with that.
Jim, is there any expectation that you would have that the Plan Commission should know about about this,
Oh, yeah, my expectation
the
is that,
next item on the agenda, so we can maybe feed Andrew
yes.
questions or
Right.
comments
So-
or concerns?
So my first meeting with Andrew and Brooke is going to be to lay that out, to say, and I'll probably go with, you know, one of these two meetings in August or July, we're going to discuss this. And be prepared to, you know, go out to the internet, start thinking about what we're looking at, so you come prepared also.
But I guess my question for Andrew, is it better that you get dribbles and drabs of questions or comments before the meeting, so you might be able to, you know, come up with a little bit better plan rather than waiting for when you're ready to give us a presentation and then get a whole bunch of questions that you never heard about?
Well, I mean, I get, you know,
Should
100
we
emails
feed
a day.
you?
So, I think that if we know what those specific topics are, it's probably most helpful if it's something related to that small, on the short list, so to speak. So if we've got these 4 on the short list right now, I would say if you have any particular question or, you know, I saw something that such and such town, I went on vacation and saw someplace in California that does this. Can you take a look at it? We can add that to the mix of what we're presenting.
I mean, I just wonder if you see value in that, or could it be a waste of time as well?
I suppose it could go either way.
Yeah, it could go either way. I would have a tendency to think they would have more value.
I think that if it's one of the handful of things that we're about to talk about, you know, I don't see any harm in sending it. We can either say this is something we've seen already, we'll take a look at it, we don't think it'll work, however, let's bring it up with the rest of the group. So, I mean, it's just if it is one of the handful of things, you know, one of the 3 or 4 things that are in the short list, I think that's fine.
Good. All right, so I think we have a plan going forward. I'm going to meet with you guys next week, put together a plan as to when we're going to be discussing these things. We publish it hopefully at our next meeting, and then we have an idea of what we're going to be discussing in the future.
Sure.
Okay, how's that sound? Great. All right, to other business, Commissioner Dorban.
Just that I will not be here for the next meeting, the following one.
Which is dates?
19th and 26th, I believe.
Okay, 19th is going to be canceled, and the 26th, okay. Because I know the next meeting after the 26th, which is the 10th, I know Commissioner Powers won't be here, nor will I. So, okay, thank you, Commissioner Dorban. Commissioner Zangara?
I got nothing. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Steilen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a comment for all of you who may be using that little funny antenna thing in Goodreader to move stuff between your PC and your iPad. There is a limitation within Windows that limits the file transfer to 40 meg, I believe. The packet that came out today was 50 some odd meg. I did find a workaround for that thing, and I've already let the people here know about it, but in case anybody needs to know, just give me a call. I'll tell you how to get around it.
Thank you. Commissioner Powers?
I have nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Schaaf?
I have nothing.
Thank you. Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.